Hey you guys, Natalie here with Team K9 Training, and in this video I want to talk about some of the different reasons why your dog isn't fulfilling the recall command. But before I dive into this video, if you haven't liked this video, go ahead and smash the thumbs up button. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, go ahead and do that now, so that way you can stay up to date with all of my latest videos giving you tips, tricks, and education when it comes to training your dog. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and dive into this video. So one of the really big reasons that I see that a dog isn't going to fulfill the recall command and come back to you when you ask it of them is because you don't practice in real life situations. A lot of the time whenever we're practicing recall with our dog, we're doing it inside of our home, we're doing it in our backyard, we're doing it, on our normal walks. But if you really actually want to utilize the recall command, how it's designed, if you think about it, calling your dog to come back to you, you're usually calling your dog to come back to you because they're invested into something else in the environment. They're getting distracted by something, or it's time to disengage from something that they are really motivated and interested in, playing with another dog, playing with another person, whatever it may be. And so if you don't practice in real life situations where you are actually recalling your dog off of things that they are currently distracted by, then your recall command is ultimately going to fail in those moments when you really need it the most, okay? Now, the other thing that is very, very common is that you have zero control when you're giving your dog the recall command. And so when it comes to providing that information to your dog, when you are trying to get them to come back to you, if you don't have a way to communicate with your dog, if you don't have a level of control, then you can't actually ensure that your dog fully comes back to you. Therefore, you're actually teaching your dog that they don't really have to finish the recall command. So this is something that a lot of dog trainers see all the time, where people are removing the leash way too early from your dog. You should first start with your 6-foot leash. And with that 6-foot leash, you should practice inside of your house. And then you should start to move outside of your house, in your driveway, on the sidewalk, just right outside your house, on your normal walks. And then you should start going out to these more distracting environments and just practicing recall with a 6-foot leash. From there, building up to a 10-foot or 15-foot leash. And then from there, a 30-foot and then a 50-foot leash. All the while, you're still going back to those foundations of working inside of your home with that really long leash, working in your driveway with that really long leash, working in your backyard, working on your normal walks, and then going out into those more distracting environments and actually practicing tip number 1 that I gave to you, but then also tip number 2 as well. The leash is the only tool in our training arsenal that provides directional communication to the dog. And what I mean by that is that your voice is not directional. Your food, if you're using treats in your training or if you're using toys in your training, is not directional. If you're using an e-call in your training, also not directional. The leash is the only tool in our toolbox that is directional. So it's really important that when you're working with your dog, you use this directional tool of communication. All right, cool. So the other thing that I see a lot of the time is that when you are recalling your dog and asking them to come back to you, a lot of the time it's to go and do something unpleasant. Maybe you're calling them to, and the only times that you call them is to put them away in their kennel, or you're calling them to give them a bath, or you're calling them to go to the car ride, to go to the vet, or you're recalling them away from playing with some of their dog friends or playing with the person that they really enjoy, whatever it may be. And you are calling them in all of these situations that isn't really fun for them to come back to. And it creates kind of this negative association. So when you're working on recall with your dog, I would really strongly encourage you that sometimes if you're calling them away from something that they're really enjoying interacting with, when they come back to you, give them some of that love, affection, and some treats, and then release them back to go and do the thing that they were enjoying. So they don't always have that association that when you call them to come back to you, it's to go and do something unpleasant, right? Alrighty, cool. So the next thing that I see a lot of the times is sometimes when we're recalling our dog, let's be honest, as dog owners, we've all been there. maybe you're recalling your dog because they're doing something or have done something that they weren't supposed to do. And this is what gets a lot of people into trouble. Let's say, for example, that your dog went potty in the house, and so you call your dog to you, and then you punish them when they get to you. First of all, that's not even taking into account that dogs, they have a very small window of association of their behavior and then the consequence following it. It's about 1.3 seconds. And so if you recall your dog to you way after the 1.3 seconds that they've already done it, you are way too late to punish them anyway. So if you ever give the recall command, do not ever punish your dog when they come back to you, okay? That is super, super, super important. All right, along that same vein of thought, when you are recalling your dog, a lot of people think that the recall command, the dog should be praised when the dog actually completes it. And yes, to a degree, that is true. However, you should start praising your dog and giving them that positive feedback as soon as they turn and start to come towards you, right? If you wait for the dog to actually land in front of you at your feet to then reward them, you missed out on the majority, the huge portion of the recall. There's a lot of distance in between where the dog started and where they ended. As soon as the dog turns and orients to you, that is exactly the moment when you should start praising your dog. Good job, come here. Oh, very good job. Moving backwards to draw the dog into you, having lower body posture, and making that really welcome for them as soon as the dog starts to turn to you. This is especially important if you have a dog that will orient to you or turn to you when they hear the recall command, but then won't actually make movement towards you. Perhaps you aren't giving enough information and feedback to the dog of what it is that you are looking for. So start praising the dog as soon as they turn towards you and they look at you, and continue to praise them the entire way, and then have a really big celebration and give them a lot of that affection and that food reward as well when they actually land at your feet. Alrighty, so the very last one, and this is honestly the one that makes the biggest difference when it comes to your recall, is that you are not correcting your dog for non-compliance. When your dog is away from you, like we already talked about, you have those 1.3 seconds to communicate to the dog whether or not that their choices of behavior are correct or incorrect. And if you are not correcting your dog for non-compliance of not completing the recall command, granted that you have actually taught the recall command, you should not be correcting for behaviors that you haven't actually taught. But if you have taught the recall command and your dog fails to recall back to you, you need to be correcting for that non-compliance, because if your dog starts running into the road, that car is going to correct your dog for that non-compliance, right? And so it's really important. It's a part of the teaching process to give that feedback to our dog of what is a good choice of behavior and what is not a good choice of behavior. Again, why the leash is so important, because if you do not have some type of communication system, if you have zero control in that situation, you can't provide that feedback to your dog, and especially within those 1.3 seconds of time. So hopefully this video was really helpful for you guys, and this gave you a couple of things to think about when you're working on some of these different commands like the recall command with your dog. So drop in the comments below, what was one of the most helpful things that I said in this video? Do you have any questions when it comes to the recall command? How can I help you with your dog? Alrighty guys, that's all that I have for you today. If you would like to find me on some of my other platforms, you can find me on Instagram. My handle is TeamTEAMK and then the number 9 training. You can find me there on Instagram, on Facebook, and then also on TikTok as well. I also have a variety of online training courses. If you're struggling with anxiety, with reactivity, confidence building, engagement, if you'd like to learn more about how to utilize the prong collar and the e-collar in your training in a humane, ethical, and efficient and effective way in your training to have a higher level of obedience, check out some of the courses. Those are going to be linked in the caption below. But that's all that I have for you guys. Thank you so much for sticking around, and I'll see you guys in the next one.